In this video, we're going to discuss multiplication and division of fractions. I'm going to start off with the easiest, and that's multiplication. As you can see, I've put some examples up. All right, multiplication of fractions is the easiest thing to do. You just multiply, for example, in the first example, we got 3/4 times 2/3. You're just going to multiply the numerators together, and you're going to multiply the denominators together, and that's it. Okay, so in this case, that's 3 times 2 over 4 times 3. And that will make 6 out of 12. And I can actually simplify that to 1 over 2. Voila. Next example. 3/4 times 5 over 7. Again, I'm just going to multiply the numerators together. And I'm going to multiply the denominators together to get my new fraction. 3 times 5 is 15. 4 times 7 is 28. Can I simplify that fraction? No. Alright, next up, another example. 3 over 5 times 7 over 12. That's again 3 times 7 over 5 times 12. And that's equal to, okay, now I want you to pay attention because 5 times 12, that's going to be very big. I mean, I don't want to work with big fractions, with big numbers. I don't like them. So I'm going to try and find a way to simplify this fraction at once. I see that I've got a 3 here and I got 12 here. Both are divisible by 3, so I'm just going to divide them already. So 3 divided by 3 is 1. 12 divided by 3 is 4. So I simplified it already. Is there anything else I can simplify? Nope. So in my numerator I get 1 times 7, which is 7. And in my denominator I get 5 times 4, which is 20. Et voila. My new fraction is 7 over 20. Can I simplify that? No. Okay, now a little bit more difficult is multiplication of two mixed numbers. Okay, a mixed number is a number that has both a fraction part and just a number part. Okay, as you can see, 1 1/2 and 3 4/5. I don't see a plus sign here in the middle, but there's a plus sign in between the 1 and the 1/2 and in between the 3 and the 4/5. There is a plus sign, but we never write that. Remember that. Okay. Multiplying mixed numbers is not that easy. Always keep them as improper fractions. Never leave them as mixed numbers. You immediately put them back into improper fractions. So 1 1/2, that's actually 3 over 2. And 3 4/5, that is 19 over 5. So you know how it works, right? So 3 times 5, that's 15. And I'm going to add the 4, which is 19. That's how I make my mixed numbers into improper fractions. Now I see, okay, I got two regular fractions again. I know what to do with that. That's 3 times 19 over 2 times 5. Okay, I got 19 here. That's quite big, but it's also a prime number, so I can't simplify anything. So I'm just going to have to do the multiplication. 3 times 19, that's 57. And 2 times 5, that's 10. So that makes 57 over 10, but I'm going to write that as a mixed number again, so I get 5 7/10. Voila. And that's it for multiplication. Now, let's go on to division. Let's take a look. Before we actually go on with division of fraction, we need to know a bit more about the relationship between multiplication and division. Okay, let's have a look at a small example. 5 times 2, we all know that that's equal to 10. Now, I'm looking for an operation that will take my 10 back to being a 5. How can I make 10 go back into, how can I make my 10 go back into a 5? Well, I'm just going to simplify, or I'm just going to simply divide by 2. So in order for me to undo my times 2 here, I am going to simply divide by 2. That's how I'm going to undo that operation. We are going to call times 2 and dividing by 2 inverse operations. So inverse operations. They're going to be each other's inverse. Okay, so they undo each other's operation. Okay, let's have a closer look at multiplying by fractions and dividing by fractions. 10 times 1 over 2. we all know, okay, I'm going to multiply my numerator together and I'm going to multiply my denominator. In this case, I don't really have a numerator. I can do this. That's actually 10 over 1. So that's going to be 10 over 2, which is going to be 5. All right, so what if, but I know, so 10 times a half is 5. But I also know that 10 divided by 2 is also 5. So an operation of times a half is the same thing as dividing by 2. That's exactly the same. That's strange, because there's a 2 here, and then this is 2 as well. All right, let's have a look at another example. 6. I'm going to divide 6 by 1 over 2. So 6 divided by a half, or 6 divided by 0.5. You can use your calculator for that if you want. Yeah? So 6 divided by a half, I know that that's actually 12. Okay? Half times 12 will give me 6. But I also know that 6 times 2 will also give me 12. So again, here, dividing by a half is the same thing as multiplying by 2. So that's again strange. So here's a 2 and there's a 2. You see that? Well, in general, we're going to see, so in general, I'm going to use letters now, not numbers. Dividing by a, so a can be any number, is the same thing as multiplying by 1 over that number. And, we're not done yet, and dividing by 1 over b, b can be any number, is the same thing as multiplying by b, by that number. So, when we would combine these two, so this and this, let's say, imagine I have to divide by a over b. That will be exactly the same as multiplying by b over a. And this is what we're going to call the inverse operation. Let's have a look at an example. Again, I'm just going to use letters, not numbers. A over b divided by c over d is going to be the same thing as a over b times d over c. And we're going to call d over c the inverse of c over d. So dividing by a fraction, c over d, is the same thing as multiplying by its inverse. And by its inverse, I mean that the numerator and the denominator just changed position. They changed place. That's the inverse of a fraction. And that's how easy it is to actually divide by a fraction. We're just going to multiply it by its inverse. That's exactly the same thing. Let's have a look at some examples. Now, 3/4 divided by 3 over 2. Alright, dividing by a fraction, that's the same thing as multiplying by its inverse. So I'm going to leave my first one. I'm going to look for the inverse of this. So multiply by 2. I'm going to change my numerator and denominator, and that's 3. I just switched them, you see? I just switched them from place. That's it. And I know how to multiply fractions. That's easy. That's 3 times 2 over 4 times 3, which is 6 over 12, which is going to be 1 over 2. Et voila. That's how you divide by fractions. Let's have a look at another example. Again, 3/4 divided by 7 over 8. Alright, keep it in your head, guys. Dividing by a fraction is the same thing as multiplying by its inverse. So I'm going to multiply, I'm going to change them, voila, and I get 3 times 8 over 4 times 7. You know what? I'm going to simplify here. This is divided by 4, and I can divide this by 4. So I get 6 over 7. And I can't simplify that anymore because I actually already simplified here. Alright, let's have another look. Maybe at some mixed numbers. It's always fun to work with mixed numbers. Alright, 3 and 4/5 divided by 1 1/2. All right, I told you before in multiplying, you never leave mixed numbers as they are. You always change them back into improper fractions. So again, 3 and 4/5, that's going to be 3 times 5, which is 15. 15 plus 4 is going to be 19 over 5, divided by 1 over 2, 1 1/2, sorry. 1 times 2 is 2, so 2 plus 1 is 3 over 2. Dividing by a fraction, and again, it's the same thing as multiplying by its inverse. So I just changed them again, nothing else changes. All right. And again, 19 times 2 over 5 times 3. 19 times 2, it's going to be 38. 5 times 3 is 15. 38 over 15. That's the same thing as, I'm going to put it as a mixed number, that's 2 and 8/15. And I can't simplify that anymore because they're not divisible by the same number. Okay, that's it on division by fractions. Okay, guys, multiplying, easy, okay? But division of fractions, just change your fraction into its inverse. So dividing by a fraction is the same thing as multiplying by its inverse. And that's all you need to know, okay? Good luck on the exercises.